Matthew Perry didn't die from a tragic accident. He was killed by a network of people who exploited his addiction for profit. His live-in assistant, Kenneth Iwamasa, who injected him with ketamine multiple times daily despite having zero medical training. Dr. Salvador Plasencia, who texted his colleague, "I wonder how much this moron will pay," while selling Matthew ketamine at 16,000% markup. And Jasveen Sangha, known as the Ketamine Queen of Los Angeles, who'd already watched one client die from her drugs in 2019, but kept selling to Matthew anyway, because desperate addicts were her most profitable customers. October 28, 2023, Pacific Palisades, Los Angeles. Matthew Perry's mansion overlooking the ocean. This video reveals what actually happened during Matthew Perry's final 24 hours. Why his assistant Kenneth Iwamasa gave him 3 separate ketamine injections that day, including the fatal big one. Matthew requested at 1:30 p.m. how the Ketamine Queen Jasveen Sangha had been supplying Matthew with hospital-grade ketamine for weeks despite knowing he was a relapsing addict. What the text messages between Dr. Plasencia and Dr. Chavez revealed about their plan to exploit Matthew as a moron, willing to pay thousands for drugs that cost them $12. Why Kenneth left Matthew alone in the hot tub after the 3rd injection even though he knew the dosage was dangerous. How the investigation that began in May 2024 uncovered a conspiracy involving 5 people who prioritized profit over Matthew's life, and why all 5 defendants, including Kenneth, both doctors, Jasveen Sangha, and another dealer, Eric Fleming, were arrested in August 2024 and charged with crimes ranging from conspiracy to distribute ketamine to distribution resulting in death. The syringe sat on the bathroom counter. Kenneth Iwamasa stared at it. Pacific Palisades, Matthew Perry's home, October 28, Kenneth had done this before, many times, every day for weeks now, but it never felt normal, never felt right. He was Matthew Perry's personal assistant, live-in, handled everything, schedule, meals, errands, privacy, protection, and now injections. Kenneth had no medical training, wasn't a nurse, wasn't a doctor, wasn't qualified to inject anyone with anything, but Matthew wanted ketamine, needed it, begged for it, and Kenneth's job was to give Matthew what he wanted. So Kenneth learned, watched videos online, practiced on oranges, then started injecting Matthew multiple times daily, whatever Matthew asked for. This morning, first injection of the day, Kenneth filled the syringe. Ketamine from the vials Jasveen Sangha had delivered. Hospital grade, pure, dangerous. Matthew was in the bedroom, waiting. He'd already asked twice. "Ken, I need it. Now." Kenneth walked in. Matthew rolled up his sleeve without being asked. They'd done this so many times it was routine. Kenneth found a vein, inserted the needle, pushed the plunger. Matthew's eyes closed. Relief. The ketamine hit immediately. Warm, floating, pain gone, anxiety gone, reality gone. "Thanks, Ken," Matthew murmured. Kenneth disposed of the syringe, said nothing, went back to the kitchen. First injection, 8:30 a.m. Complete. Matthew Perry was 54 years old. One of the most famous actors in the world. Chandler Bing from Friends. Beloved by millions, wealthy beyond measure, and completely, devastatingly addicted. It wasn't new. Matthew had been an addict for 30 years. Vicodin, alcohol, opioids, rehab, relapse, repeat. 2018 was the worst. Opioid use had caused his colon to perforate. He'd spent 2 weeks in a coma, survived with a 5% chance, 14 surgeries, months with a colostomy bag. Matthew had nearly died, should have died, but somehow survived. After 2018, he got sober, stayed clean for years, wrote a memoir in 2022 about his addiction journey. Friends, lovers, and the big terrible thing. Brutally honest, hoped it would help other addicts, but 2023, relapse. Not opioids this time, ketamine. Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic, legal when prescribed, used in medical settings for pain management and depression treatment. But it's also a club drug, recreational, produces out-of-body experiences, hallucinations, numbness, escape from reality. Matthew started ketamine therapy legitimately, doctor-supervised, legal doses, for depression and anxiety. But then he wanted more, needed more. The therapeutic doses weren't enough. That's when Dr. Salvador Plasencia entered the picture. September 2023, Matthew's addiction was spiraling. He contacted Dr. Plasencia, a licensed physician who saw an opportunity. Dr. Plasencia texted his colleague Dr. Mark Chavez, "I wonder how much this moron will pay." The moron was Matthew Perry, a desperate addict, someone Plasencia could exploit. Plasencia and Chavez began supplying Matthew with ketamine, lots of it, far beyond any therapeutic dose. The ketamine cost them about $12 per vial. They sold it to Matthew for $2,000, 16,000% markup, profiting off a dying addict's desperation. But the doctors couldn't supply everything Matthew wanted. The quantities were too large, too risky. That's when Kenneth, Matthew's assistant, found another source. Jasveen Sangha, known in Los Angeles as the Ketamine Queen. Sangha ran a drug operation out of her North Hollywood home. A stash house filled with ketamine, methamphetamine, cocaine. She sold to wealthy clients, celebrities, people with money and addiction. In 2019, another one of Sangha's clients, Cody McClory, had died from ketamine she'd sold him. After Cody died, Sangha did a Google search. Can ketamine be listed as cause of death? The answer was yes. She knew her drugs could kill people. She kept selling anyway. In September 2023, Kenneth contacted Sangha. Matthew needed more ketamine. Lots of it. Sangha knew Matthew Perry was a relapsing addict. Knew he was vulnerable. Knew the dosages he was requesting were dangerous. She sold to him anyway. Because addicts paid well, especially rich, desperate ones. October 2023. Matthew's ketamine use had escalated to dangerous levels. He was using multiple times daily, injections, far beyond any medical recommendation. His body was saturated with the drug. Kenneth administered most of the injections, following Matthew's instructions, whatever Matthew wanted, whenever he wanted it. Kenneth knew it was dangerous, knew Matthew was using too much. But Matthew was his employer. His job was to help Matthew. And in Matthew's mind, help meant giving him the drugs he craved. October 28, 2023, the final day, 8:30 a.m. First injection. Kenneth gave it. Matthew went about his morning. Breakfast, phone calls, seemed relatively normal. But by late morning, Matthew wanted more. 12:45 p.m. Second injection. Kenneth filled another syringe. Found Matthew in the living room. Administered the dose. Matthew's tolerance was high. He'd been using so much ketamine that normal doses barely affected him anymore. He needed more and more to feel the same relief. After the second injection, Matthew decided to get in the hot tub. Relax, let the ketamine work. The hot tub was in the backyard. Private, overlooking the ocean. Matthew's favorite place to unwind. He changed into swim trunks, walked outside, got into the hot tub. The water was warm. The ketamine was flowing through his system. Matthew felt good, calm, floating. But it wasn't enough. 1:30 p.m., Matthew called for Kenneth. Kenneth came outside, found Matthew in the hot tub. "Shoot me up with a big one," Matthew said. Those were his last coherent words. "Shoot me up with a big one." Kenneth hesitated. Matthew had already had 2 injections that day. A third, especially a large dose, was dangerous. But Matthew insisted. He wanted it, needed it. Kenneth's role was to serve Matthew, to give him what he wanted. That had always been the job. So Kenneth went inside, prepared the syringe, a large dose, bigger than the previous 2, came back outside. Matthew was still in the hot tub, waiting. Kenneth administered the injection, pushed the plunger. The ketamine entered Matthew's bloodstream. "Thanks, Ken." Matthew closed his eyes, leaned back in the hot tub, let the drug take over. Kenneth left, went back inside the house, left Matthew alone in the hot tub. That was the last time anyone saw Matthew Perry alive. Hours passed. Kenneth was inside the house, doing other tasks, assuming Matthew was fine. He'd left Matthew in the hot tub before. Matthew liked to soak for long periods. But this time was different. The ketamine dose was too high. Matthew's body, already saturated from months of heavy use, couldn't handle it. The drug depressed his respiratory system, slowed his breathing. Combined with the heat of the water and the relaxation, Matthew lost consciousness. He slipped under the water. Couldn't pull himself up. Couldn't call for help. Matthew Perry drowned in his hot tub, face down in the water, alone. Later that afternoon, exact time unclear, Kenneth came back outside to check on Matthew. He found Matthew floating face down in the hot tub, unresponsive. Kenneth panicked, pulled Matthew out of the water, called 911. Paramedics arrived, attempted resuscitation, but it was too late. Matthew Perry was dead at 54 years old. The initial report said apparent drowning, but the truth was more complicated. The autopsy came back in December 2023. Cause of death: acute effects of ketamine, with drowning as a contributing factor. Matthew's blood ketamine levels were extraordinarily high, equivalent to the amount used for general anesthesia during surgery. The coroner noted, the ketamine in his system caused cardiovascular overstimulation and respiratory depression. In other words, the drug stopped his heart and lungs from working properly. He lost consciousness, drowned. But how did Matthew get that much ketamine? Who supplied it? Who administered it? That's when the investigation began. May 2024. The Los Angeles Police Department and DEA started investigating Matthew Perry's death. They obtained Matthew's phone records, text messages, financial records, medical records. They interviewed people who'd been around Matthew in his final months. They discovered a network, multiple people supplying Matthew with ketamine, profiting from his addiction. The investigation uncovered 5 defendants. Kenneth Iwamasa, Matthew's personal assistant, administered the fatal injection. 2. Dr. Salvador Plasencia, physician who sold ketamine to Matthew at massive markup. Matthiev. Dr. Mark Chavez, physician who supplied Plasencia with ketamine. 4. Jasveen Sangha, Ketamine Queen, major supplier. Eric Fleming, I'm middleman who connected Matthew to Sangha. All 5 had contributed to Matthew's death. All 5 had prioritized profit over Matthew's life. The text messages were damning. Dr. Plasencia to Dr. Chavez, September 2023. I wonder how much this moron will pay. The moron was Matthew Perry, a man suffering from addiction. A man Plasencia was supposed to help as a doctor. Instead, Plasencia saw Matthew as a cash opportunity, someone to exploit. Plasencia to Chavez, let's get everything we can out of this guy before he realizes what's happening. The doctors were buying ketamine vials for approximately $12 each. They sold them to Matthew for $2,000 per vial. Between September and October 2023, Matthew paid the doctors over $55,000 for ketamine. The doctors knew Matthew was an addict, knew he was using dangerous amounts, didn't care. As long as Matthew kept paying, they kept supplying. Jasveen Sangha's involvement was even more disturbing. In 2019, another client of hers, Cody McClory, died from ketamine she'd sold him. After Cody's death, Sangha searched online. Can ketamine be listed as cause of death? She learned that yes, ketamine could kill. Her product had killed someone. Her response, keep selling. When Kenneth contacted her in September 2023 about Matthew Perry needing ketamine, Sangha knew exactly what she was dealing with. A celebrity addict, desperate, willing to pay premium prices. She sold Matthew large quantities of ketamine. Very pure, very strong. Before one delivery, she texted a warning. This is very strong, be careful. But she kept selling, because Matthew kept buying. Between September and October, Sangha sold Matthew approximately $11,000 worth of ketamine. She knew the risks. She'd already seen someone die. She didn't stop. Kenneth Iwamasa's role was the most tragic. Kenneth wasn't a dealer, wasn't a doctor. He was Matthew's employee, his assistant, someone who'd worked for Matthew for years. Kenneth cared about Matthew, but he'd been placed in an impossible position. Matthew was addicted, desperate, demanding. As his employer, Matthew controlled Kenneth's livelihood, his job, his income. When Matthew said, inject me, Kenneth felt he had no choice. Kenneth learned to inject ketamine by watching online videos. No medical training, no supervision, just a loyal assistant trying to help his boss. In the weeks before Matthew's death, Kenneth injected Matthew with ketamine multiple times daily, sometimes 6 to 8 injections in a single day. Kenneth knew it was dangerous, knew Matthew was using too much, but Matthew insisted, and Kenneth's job was to serve Matthew. October 28, 2023. Kenneth gave Matthew 3 injections. The third one, the big one Matthew requested, was fatal. Kenneth administered the dose, left Matthew alone in the hot tub, and Matthew died. August 15, 2024. Federal authorities arrested all 5 defendants. Kenneth Iwamasa was charged with conspiracy to distribute ketamine, causing death. He pleaded guilty in July 2024, before the arrests were made public, cooperated with investigators, admitted everything. In his plea agreement, Kenneth confessed, I repeatedly injected Matthew Perry with ketamine without medical training. On October 28, 2023, I injected Mr. Perry with ketamine 3 times. The 3rd injection killed him. Kenneth faces up to 15 years in prison. Dr. Mark Chavez pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute ketamine, admitted he sold ketamine to Dr. Plasencia, knowing it would be given to Matthew Perry outside legitimate medical practice. Faces up to 10 years. Eric Fleming pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute ketamine and distribution of ketamine resulting in death. Admitted he obtained ketamine from Jasveen Sangha and delivered it to Kenneth for Matthew. Faces up to 25 years. Dr. Salvador Plasencia pleaded not guilty. Charged with conspiracy to distribute ketamine, distribution of ketamine resulting in death, and falsifying records. If convicted, faces up to life in prison. His trial is pending. Jasveen Sangha pleaded not guilty, charged with conspiracy to distribute ketamine, maintaining a drug-involved premises, possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine and ketamine, and distribution of ketamine resulting in death. If convicted, faces mandatory minimum of 10 years, up to life in prison. Her trial is pending. The evidence against Plasencia and Sangha is overwhelming. Text messages showing Plasencia calling Matthew a moron and plotting to exploit him. Financial records showing Matthew paid over $55,000 for ketamine in 2 months. Witness testimony from Kenneth, Chavez, and Fleming, all cooperating with prosecutors. For Sangha, evidence of the 2019 death of Cody McLaury from her ketamine. Her Google searches about ketamine causing death. Text messages discussing sales to Matthew Perry. Both are facing decades in prison. Matthew Perry's family released a statement after the arrests. We were and still are heartbroken by Matthew's death, but it has helped to know law enforcement has taken his case very seriously. We look forward to justice taking its course. The Friends cast, Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, David Schwimmer, attended Matthew's funeral together in November 2023. They didn't speak publicly about the arrests, but people close to them said they were devastated, angry. Matthew had been their friend for 30 years, and these 5 people had exploited him, killed him, for money. October 28, 2023. Matthew Perry's last day, 8:30 a.m. Kenneth gave him the first injection. 12:45 p.m. Kenneth gave him the second injection. 30 p.m. Matthew asked for a big one. Kenneth gave him the third injection. Matthew got into the hot tub. The ketamine took over. He lost consciousness, drowned. Kenneth found him hours later, too late to save him. The ketamine in Matthew's system came from multiple sources. Dr. Plasencia supplied some, sold at 16,000% markup, while calling Matthew a moron. Dr. Chavez supplied Plasencia, knew it was illegal, did it anyway. Jasveen Sangha supplied the rest. Had already watched one client die from her ketamine, kept selling to Matthew anyway. Eric Fleming acted as middleman, connected Kenneth to Sangha, facilitated the deals. Kenneth administered the injections. No medical training, just following Matthew's orders. Until the third injection killed him. 5 people, all complicit, all prioritized money over Matthew's life. Matthew Perry didn't just die. He was killed, not by a single person, by a network. Doctors who violated their oath. A dealer who'd already caused 1 death. A middleman who cared more about profit than safety. And an assistant who loved Matthew but enabled his addiction until it killed him. All 5 knew Matthew was an addict. All 5 knew the ketamine was dangerous. All 5 kept supplying it anyway, because Matthew Perry, desperate, suffering, willing to pay anything, was profitable. The syringe sat on the bathroom counter. October 28, 2023, 8:30 a.m. Kenneth filled it with ketamine. Walked to Matthew's bedroom. Injected him. First dose of the day. Routine. 12:45 p.m. Second injection. Matthew wanted more. Through him, shoot me up with a big one. Kenneth hesitated, then complied, because that was his job. Give Matthew what he wanted. Third injection, the fatal one. Matthew went to the hot tub, alone. The ketamine overwhelmed his system. He lost consciousness, slipped under the water, drowned. Kenneth found him hours later, called 911. Too late. Matthew Perry was dead at 50. Dr. Plasencia texted, I wonder how much this moron will pay. The moron was Matthew Perry, a suffering addict, a human being. Plasencia sold him ketamine for $2,000 per vial. Cost, profit over life, greed over ethics. Jasveen Sangha Googled, can ketamine be listed as cause of death? After her client Cody McLaury died in 2019 from her ketamine, she learned, yes, ketamine can kill. She kept selling, to Matthew, to others, because dead clients don't stop profit. They're just risks you manage. Kenneth Iwamasa injected Matthew Perry with ketamine 3 times on October 28, 2023. He had no medical training, no qualifications, but Matthew wanted it, needed it, demanded it. Kenneth was loyal, obedient, trapped. The third injection killed Matthew. Kenneth will live with that forever. 5 people, 5 roles, 1 death, all arrested August 2024, all facing justice, but Matthew Perry is still dead, killed by the people he trusted, paid, relied on, the assistant who served him, the doctors who exploited him, the dealer who'd already killed before. All chose money over Matthew's life. October 28, 2023, the last day. Matthew Perry asked for a big one. He got it, and it killed him.